Welcome to the Cupp O Sunshine series. I had an opportunity to talk with Joe Morgan, who's a personal friend, a mentor, and a previous CEO of mine, also now currently the CEO of SIY. This is part 2 of the dialogue that we had, and I love this section because it's really about the mentor-mentee relationship, which I know is important to so many people. So hopefully you'll like what you see and learn a little thing too. Here we go. As you think about yourself as a mentee, and I think about this a lot too, part of what I always encourage people to do, because there's lots of folks that are looking for a mentor, which is awesome, and you want that. And a sponsor, I'll say mentor/sponsor. Sponsor is even better, in terms of someone being incredibly invested in your life and your career. But I always coach people to bring something to the table that a mentor learns just as much from a mentee as the opposite. So what kind of advice do you give to people? Because I know you work with a lot of people early in career as well. What kind of advice do you give them when they're thinking about trying to create those connections with mentors?
So I do this thing called skimming rocks. So think about skimming rocks. Mm-hmm. Like physically you go pick up, flat rock. Like you're very competitive, so I'm guessing you won't stop until you get like 8 or 10 or whatever. Some people are plop people, like they're encouraged that they threw it into the water and they saw a splash, But I'm going to stay until I get as many as I can. And if you get 7, I'm not going to leave until I get 8, right?
Yeah.
But what I do is I literally skim rocks with people to understand how they think about that situation. And it creates a disarming moment of dialogue. And I encourage people to be wicked uncomfortable. And just be okay with not being okay.
Yes.
And so I think a lot of mentoring has to be trust-based, and you have to earn that. You can't dictate trust. You have to earn trust. And it does come through experience. It doesn't come because I'm, some title.
Right.
You have to be willing to expose who you are as well. Those are the things that I've experienced. The other thing, you had asked me a question the other day, and I think this is a really big part of it too, is the concept of shadows.
Yeah.
Is, a lot of leaders cast shadows on others. And I think real mentors are willing to be in the other person's shadow.
Yep.
And that's, I think, the big difference between a successful relationship and one that's not.
I couldn't agree more. It's the thrill of watching someone else
do
exceptional things.
You're one of those people to me. We're friends, but I love seeing everything that you do. When you're not excited about someone's success and impact in the world, it's like you're not being genuine about the relationship.
And I just want to highlight one thing you said, because I think it's really important for everyone listening. It's the honesty piece is so critical, because I think when you have the right mentor and you are at a turning point, and you were this for me, like when you're at a turning point in your career, when you're making a super hard decision, you need that person who has that relationship. And it's, by the way, it's actually a lot easier if it's not somebody in your family, because they have a different perspective. They're great too, and you want them. You want them for sure. But you also need that person who can have such an honest conversation. And if you don't show up with that honesty, it won't work. So like when you were, I was making a big career decision, and, I had a lot of conversations about it, and you asked me some really hard questions. And if I didn't bring honesty to the table, I would have made a bad decision. And I think that's so important, that you have to sort of let your guard down to make the relationships as powerful as they can be.
Can I tell a funny story about one of those conversations? So
yes, you can, of course.
I was in a cab in New York City. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So my cab driver, it's like horrible traffic, and I'm talking to Deb, and it's wicked hot out. It's terrible. And the cab driver and I were chatting, and he was from, I forget where he's from, different country. He spoke like 6 languages or something. And we got into this conversation about what he wanted to do with his career. And he wanted to be more educated. He was an Uber driver, and he was doing it as kind of an interim thing. And so I asked him where he went to school, and then I looked it up on the internet, and I found that they had a local chapter for his school that were doing mentoring in town that night.
Get out.
And so he's like, "Get out of here, really?" And I said, "Yes." So he ends up giving me his telephone number, and we talk still to this day.
That is so you. God, that is perfect.
No, my wife says I
like
being friends with everybody in the world, but I just was excited to see this guy. Yeah, it was pretty fun.
That is amazing. I just really like that segment. And when I think about my relationships with mentees or as a mentor, The key to all of it is really about learning and really having that opportunity to think about what you can learn from each other. So it goes both ways. And I often say to those who are interested in being a mentee, to me or to somebody else, is to be prepared, excited, and really lean into the dialogue so that you're both bringing something to the table. And that way you get so much more out of it. So hopefully you learned a great lesson here and it'll be helpful to you in the future. Thanks so much.